there was one other thing in your sphere of influence and you could change it and never have to think about it again, what would that be?
The kids were kind to each other. I've thought about that a lot. And I have little grandkids. They're like 2, and it comes naturally. It starts early. They're biting and
Yeah.
pulling hair, and if one of them grabs
Yeah.
something, the other one wants it. But I was in a classroom today and just saw it was not overt, but just the eye roll or kind of under their breath. And we don't realize what we're doing, of course, to other people, even as a kid, and those things stay on our hearts and our heads forever. And there's people that are my age that are in therapy because someone was unkind to them. And I wish, like, I don't care that everyone's friends. I don't care that, everyone gets along in every situation, but I wish that they could be kind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is Michelle Stewart. Michelle is the superintendent and principal at Happy Valley Elementary School District, and that is in Santa Cruz, California. Michelle, it's great to finally have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. We had a few glitches, and so we kept postponing, but today's the perfect day.
Yes, it's beautiful. I actually had a day, the first time was my fault. I had my eyes dilated and I was like, I had no idea what that was going to be like. So I appreciate your patience with us as we go through this. But tell our listeners a little bit about you and about Happy Valley Elementary. I love that name, by the way. It's a great
name. It's a great name. My name is Michelle Stewart, and I have been in education for 30 years, a long time. I started out as a teacher, taught almost every elementary grade, and then was given the opportunity to be a principal when my principal had to leave, and I said no. And then she said, just try it. And I said, oh, okay, but I'm not going to leave the classroom. And after I was there for a couple months, I thought, I kind of like this. I was in my early 40s, and I'd undergone breast cancer a few years before then, and my girls were getting older. And I realized how much I liked the connections with the adults, both the teachers and the parents, and just being able to see all children, not just those 29 or 30 in my classroom, to be able to see the whole school. So I really
Right.
did fall in love with administration. After about 6 years, I left that school to go to the district. And again, I didn't want to, but I was afraid, like, okay, if I don't do it now, what if this opportunity doesn't present itself again in the future? So I became a director of curriculum and instruction, and it came just at the time when California was kind of revamping all the ways that they did funding. And so they created this new role in lots of districts called the director of curriculum instruction and assessment. And we looked at how we can kind of unify our schools, and it went back to more local funding. It's kind of gone away from that in the last 10 years, but it was super exciting and really fun. And from there, I became the assistant superintendent. So I was in charge of student services. I was in charge of some technology, really had my hands in the budget. So about 5 years ago, this opportunity opened up for Happy Valley Elementary. And I'd been in a unified TK-12 district before, and this is at the time was a K-6, and there were 130 students. And I thought, you know what? I've worn every hat. I think I can do this. And
Yeah.
so I applied for the job and got it. And it was right after COVID. It was in 2021. So my first year, I didn't even get to see what it was like to be a superintendent principal of a school. I got to just give tests and, communicate with people about wearing masks and making sure everyone, I mean, we kind of forget all that, right? But just
Yeah.
making sure everyone was separated on the playground, only certain classes could use certain equipment, and then we'd wipe it down before the next group went out. But now this is it is my 5th year there, and we actually are down to about 105 students. We are a basic aid district, which means we are funded on our tax base. So we're not funded per student. So even though now we have TK, we don't get extra money for them. We don't get extra money for lunches. We don't get extra money for all of those things that the state of California gives. We really have to just work in this small base. A lot of basic aid districts are really wealthy because it means that they make more money than you would if you were funded per student. But we're really funded on the shallow end. Like sometimes it would be 4 or 5 students would make a difference for us. So that
Mm,
is always a challenge for us. But it's an amazing little school. We are in the top 10% of schools in California. We've actually
nice.
been in the top 1% before. We've consistently been on the honor roll, on the state honor roll. We have a great endowment fund that helps pay for classroom aids in every classroom. We have art and music every week for every child. In third grade, they start playing the ukulele. We have
Fun.
incredible test scores, great culture and climate. It is a small little school with great parent support. We don't have a whole lot of diversity, although 2 years ago I had 2 English language learners, and this year I have 12. And part of it is because one family with 5 children moved in and they speak Polish. So that's been fun. But it's just because you don't look different doesn't mean that you don't still have a lot of internal diversity and things that are challenges and opportunities for us.
Yeah. Can we go back just a little bit when you were talking about being funded only by taxes? Can you explain that? That's the first time I've heard that, and I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not
Sure.
in
Yeah.
that that's not in
No,
my
well,
realm. So I'm really
and I
curious
didn't
about how did
understand it.
that happen? Yeah.
I didn't understand it till I came here either. So the state of California gives districts money based on the students that show up at school. And there's different funding bases because they've thrown so much money into TK. That's transitional kindergarten. Those are 4-year-olds. Um, that so they have thrown a lot of money. And so they're the most highly funded students. High school is funded more than like 4th through 8th grade. So they're kind of in these 4 little buckets: TK bucket, K3 bucket, 4th through 8th, 9th through 12th. And
Okay.
so back of the napkin math, they say, okay, you get approximately $9,000 per student. When you multiply all that, if your tax base from your area is higher than that, then the state of California goes, "You don't need us. You just are gonna get the money that you get taxes, and you can spend it as you want." It's nice because, you get a little more flexibility how you spend your money, but it's
Mhm.
different because there's still mandates. We still have to provide free lunch. We still have to have TK with a 1 to 10 ratio. So you still have to have all that, but we don't get any of those add-ons. And when you are in a place like we are, where 4 or 5 students can make a difference, it's not a straight calculation because you get extra money if you're basic aid, and you don't get certain money if you're basic aid. And so it just becomes this very convoluted decision. And some districts decide, you know what, we're going to go ahead and increase our class size and increase our campus size and get that extra money so we can afford to stay open.
Ah,
And then one thing that
gotcha.
happened for us a few years ago that I can talk about more later is one of the things that I got to deal with was construction. There was construction already in the plans about 10 years ago, long before I got there. And we took down one of our buildings and we're going to replace it. And once it was down, realized that we're not funded the same way we were 10 years ago and didn't have enough
Oh,
money to put that back. And so growing our student body would be difficult. Like
right.
our facilities are pretty small. So it's all of those things that affect the next steps for each of the people that are there.
Wow. And you stop at 8th grade, is that right?
No, we stop at
Oh,
6th grade.
6th grade, 6th grade.
6th grade.
Okay. So
Yeah, you can't be an
pre-K
elementary
and
school
TK.
district unless you have 6th grade, because
Okay.
otherwise you would be absorbed by your local community. You have to have a secondary grade, at least one. So we're TK6.
Interesting,
I
interesting,
know.
and every state has their own nuances, and we do a lot of work and serve a lot of kids in California, so I know there's a lot of nuances with California, but it's just interesting to hear all of that because it's not something that I deal with every single day, but you
Right.
obviously, wow, it's
Yeah.
and is it a decision that you as a school and as your board makes, or is it something that the state says, "No, no, 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 you can't change that?"
The state says you are basic aid or you are
Okay.
it's called ADA funded. Some people say it's LCFF, which is local control funding formula. ADA is your average daily attendance. Either way,
Okay.
it's getting money per student or getting money from the taxes. But your local board could decide we no longer want to be basic aid and we would like to start growing and collecting money per student. So, first, you'd have to get those students. And the way you
Okay.
get them is by interdistrict transfers. So, you like reach out to other districts and say like we're going to take your kids and we have an agreement in our county that we will try to do that, but it's the previous district that I was in, there's about, I think 20%, 20 to 30% of their population is from other districts. So
Yeah, and there's money that moves around and is sent to
does
this one and sent to
Yep.
I don't know how you guys keep all of that straight,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
it
I've heard
is.
some of that and I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, I had
it's
no idea." So,
crazy.
yeah,
Especially the
yeah.
small district, it gets a little bit crazier, but
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about like Happy Valley. Like what kinds of things do you say make it different from some of the other schools? Or just make it
well,
happy. I
one
love that.
it is a really happy place. Well, for one, I only have 6 classrooms. So I have 9 grade levels and 6 classrooms. So I have to have some combination classrooms, but I have very small class sizes. My largest class size this year is 25, and that's in a 5-6 combination. I have my TK only has 11 kids. I have a K1 combo that has 9 kindergartners and 11 first graders. So the kindergartners go home at after lunch, and then those first graders have just 11 kids in their classroom. Because we are so small, um, we have to all wear a lot of hats, and it's
Yeah.
pretty sweet. The kids are
Yeah.
seen, they are known. I mean, the other day, I was going through the lost and found, and I went, "Oh, this is Henry's jacket. Oh, this is Celeste's shirt." Like, not only do you know the students by name and their parents by name, you know their stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other cool thing is, you can imagine we don't have a lot of attrition. Our teachers stay. They love to be
Right.
at the school, and so it's the same class that moves up, which can cause some problems for our students that may have some struggles or challenges with other kids. I say it's sort of like a family in the good ways and
Mhm.
the bad. But,
Yeah.
I had a brand new teacher to 4th grade this year, and so she went to the teachers that had all had these kids for 4 years. "Tell me how they work together. Tell me what they do." They know them so well, and even, last year, I had some students that were giving their teacher a really hard time, and I went and got the previous year's teacher, and she went in there and said, "You know better than this." I kinda, told them, like and she said, "You can't expect that from them. Come on, you guys. You're better than this. You can do this." So it's that I mean, those are some things that, like, are just amazing.
Yeah.
We know the families. We know we can give them one-on-one support all the time. We do have some students on 504s, which are, a plan for students that need extra support because they may have anxiety or they may have a medical issue. Um,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that's really necessary to have those 504s because we are going to provide those accommodations for those students anyway. But I really want
Automatically, yeah. Mhm.
I really want to formalize it and still
Yeah.
say this is something no matter where you went, you could have this and use it. And it protects the kid, but it also reminds us a little bit, hey,
Yeah.
this kid deserves some extra help here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, is there plans in the future to grow, or and how do you maintain, like, if you're at 102 and people watch this podcast and you
Yeah,
grow? I mean,
yeah.
do you set limits?
We do. We set
Okay.
capacity limits,
Okay.
and it's very important to our board that we keep that small rural feeling. It is
Okay.
just, first of all, in order to make money, because we continue to deficit spend, which means that we spend more every year than we make, and so we
Mhm.
have some reserve, but, it could be scary if that continues to happen, but in order for us to actually make money, we'd probably have to grow by a few classrooms. Well, now you're taking maybe our art and music room for a classroom, and now we have to hire another teacher, and now we have more hot lunch fees. And now we have, all of those things that come, which is wonderful to be able to support more students. But we want to make sure that we're first serving our in district students.
Are you struggling to keep speech therapy fully staffed or tired of high turnover? You're not alone. At Lighthouse Therapy, our speech language pathologists are seasoned professionals, and most of them have over 16 years of school based experience. They're not just qualified, they're consistent, relational, and results driven. We offer 3 flexible delivery models: virtual therapy, hybrid therapy, and in person therapy. It's speech therapy done right for you and your students. Learn more at lighthouse-therapy.com/brighter together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Absolutely. So then where do the kids go after 6th grade?
That's a great question. So they go to the nearby middle school, Santa Cruz City Schools, is kind of the oversight, the next group that
Right.
they go to.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what happens a little bit, and it's happening this year with quite a few. I haven't had a group like this do this as they're going to next year. They can go to that school in 6th grade if they want to. So usually they like to stay at Happy Valley because they get to go to science camp. We have, special things that only they get to do. They're on leadership. They, have a graduation, but also when they get to go to the middle school, they get electives and they get maybe a broader group of friends. When you've been with the same group of kids for
6
like
years?
sometimes
Yeah.
6 to 8 years, it's a long time, and if your best friend is there and you are that kid that just is great wherever you are, it might be a perfect thing for you, or, maybe I would have loved for my girls to be there in 6th grade because they were both kinda on the younger emotional side, like,
Mm,
they still like to play, those games and read and all of those things, but, if you're a kid that wants sports or electives or maybe is a little neurodivergent or, maybe a little eclectic and they just can find their people a little bit more when they go to the middle school.
mhm. Mhm. So how big is the middle school? I mean, are we talking, is it culture shock for them sometimes, or
It's
are
a
they
culture shock.
prepared? Yeah.
It is, especially the one that, a lot of them go to in 6th grade. I mean, we do have some charter schools that they have access to, and again, the surrounding districts have a pretty, um robust agreement of taking students, but the one that my students go to, is about 50% English language learners, and the school, gosh, off the top of my head, I wanna say it's 700? It's a big school. So
Much bigger. Yeah.
they go from a school of 105 where we all go to recess at the same time with all the same people, but
Mhm.
for some of those school I mean, most of the kids do really, really well, and a lot of them just thrive, and so, like, my group, I had a kinda big group of 5th graders this year going into 6th grade, and that about half of them are wanting to go there, and sometimes it's like, "Well, my best friend is going, I wanna go," but they all kind
Mm.
of are going for different reasons, I
Mhm.
was at a twins where their parents are like, "Time for them to spread their wings a little bit," so
Yeah. Yeah. I can see both sides of it, it's like you're top
Yeah.
dog at 6th grade, right? You get to be the big kid on campus, right? But then, you've got all these new exciting things at the new school that you've never seen, and you're going there. I see both sides of it for sure.
I
So,
started out teaching 6th grade, and it was my
mm,
absolute favorite grade, and I taught in the elementary school, and I said, "Until March, they belong in elementary school." And
mm,
about, March 1st, I'm like, "Go to middle school. You don't belong here anymore." So, you know, like, I know that you're gonna ask me, like, if I could change something, I have a different
yeah.
answer, but if I could change an answer in the education system, I would say you could be in elementary school until January, and then you get to go
And
to
then go to
middle
middle
school.
school mid-year,
That's
mid-year.
probably how people feel
It's
about 8th
interesting.
grade too.
I wrote a blog years ago now because I've been Lighthouse has been since July of 2018, so we're almost 8 years old. I can't even believe it when I say
Wow.
that. But
Yeah.
one I remember one Halloween, I wrote an article, and it was a blog on middle schoolers and how you engage middle schoolers, and the title of the blog, if I'm correct, was something like, "Help, my middle school children or students have turned into monsters,"
Yeah.
kind of going with that
Yeah.
Halloween theme. But,
Yeah.
how you engage them and how you get them excited about therapy and
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't. And I'm blessed to be really good at what I do. But still, every single age has its challenge, but those middle schoolers, they are a breed all to
They are.
themselves, all
My
to
husband used to
themselves.
teach middle school, and he said they're people they've never been before, and they'll never be again. But
Mhm.
the other thing was when I
Very
taught 6th
good.
grade, I was
Yeah.
young. I was not old enough to be their mother, and I remember I had a parent-teacher conference, and the little boy that was such a goofball in class crawled on his mom's lap, and I thought, "Oh, you're still a baby." And once, now I have grandchildren, but once I have my own children, then and that's part of the reason why I loved being a principal, because I could let parents know, like, "I love your goofy 11-year-old kid, and I still know that you see them as that little 2-year-old toddler, or,
Right.
that
Yeah.
5-year-old kindergartner, like, you still see their heart and that they're still a kid. They're still a
Yeah.
little kid."
Yeah, and that's always the thing that, it's like, I wanna be an adult, but I'm still a little kid, but then I
Right.
don't wanna be a little kid, so
Yeah.
I act out, and yeah. Yeah, it's such a and it's one of those things where it's like there's a lot of firsts and a lot of lasts
Yeah.
in that
You're
age,
right.
The last time they're gonna sit on your lap, right? The
Yeah.
last time they're gonna run up and hug you in public, and all of those things that you don't even think about. There's a last to everything, right? Yeah. Yeah, and you don't know when it's gonna happen, you really don't, so, I always
Treasure
tell
it.
anytime
Right.
treasure it,
And that's what I
exactly,
always
treasure it.
say at graduation. I say, "'Kay, you're going to 7th grade, don't blink." Because, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, they're in college, like, and it
Mhm.
it really is, like,
Yeah.
and sometimes I know sometimes parents are like, "I'm trying to blink, come on, keep going."
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't it until you've been through it, in it, and out of it. We were talking about this in the other day. I don't even remember what we were who I think it was a I don't know, round the table maybe, but we were just talking about, oh, I know it. It was at one of our church events we had. The Anchor Fellowship is the a 50 and older, and we were and oh, and then there was a um uh marriage class. We went to a marriage thing, and they were talking about pink brains and blue brains and how men think and how women think and all of that. And we were talking about stages and how, there's different, there's your stage as a child and those stages that you go through. And then, oh my goodness, then you get to be an adult. And then you're going through I'm getting married and having kids, and your fertility, and your fertility ends at some point. And then your kids are in middle school and high school, and then graduation and empty nest. And I mean, it just is like there's so many, and each one of them is so unique. I learned at a fairly decent age. I wish I'd have learned a little bit younger, but I started learning to savor it when they were in elementary school, and just going, I'm only going to get them for so long, and
Right.
then they're gonna be gone, you know? And fortunately for me, they work for me, so, I get to see them a lot. But my youngest is still in Michigan, and we're clear down in South Texas, so I don't get to see him nearly
Oh,
as much.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he's the one that's going into the Air National Guard and is not gonna stay with the company. I got 1 more month, and then
Oh my
the government
goodness.
gets him for a very long time, but he wants to
Good
go back
for
to
him.
school, so he
Yep.
wants to fly.
Good for him.
Wants to fly
Yep.
an
Good for
airplane,
him.
so and you have to let them live their dreams, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
So,
You do.
awesome.
But
So
even, like you were talking about, like that uniqueness, that's one cool thing about being an elementary school principal, because you do get
mhm,
to just savor each one of those ages and
yeah.
each one of those kind of developmental milestones and who they are.
Yeah, you make such a lasting impact on their lives. And that's the thing, sometimes even teachers, we don't always remember or realize the impact that we're having because we're doing it day in and day out and jogging along, trying to make sure we get everything done. But boy, it's the amount of influence that we have as teachers and the amount of shaping. it, I think the only person that does more is the parent, right?
I
So,
agree with you.
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you that question. So, you've got an amazing group. You absolutely do. But if there was one thing, and you can't choose money. You can't choose money. But if there was one other thing in your sphere of influence and you could change it and never have to think about it again, what would that be?
The kids were kind to each other.
Mm,
I've thought about that a lot. And I have little grandkids. They're like 2, and it comes naturally. It starts early. They're biting and
yeah.
pulling hair, and if one of them grabs
Yeah.
something, the other one wants it. But I was in a classroom today and just saw it was not overt, but just the eye roll or kind of under their breath. And um, we don't realize what we're doing, of course, to other people, even
Mhm.
as a kid, and those things stay on our hearts and our heads forever. And there's people that are my age that are in therapy because someone was unkind to them. And I wish, like, I don't care that everyone's friends. I don't care that everyone gets along in every situation, but I wish that they could be kind. If I could just have a magic wand and say,
Yeah.
like, and one of the teachers today said, "I'm gonna tell you who your partner is, and don't forget when I tell you that everyone can see your face." And I thought that was such a great thing to say before she told them the partners, because, they
Yeah.
even just the little eye rollers or the like blowing out your breath or
Mhm.
being upset. But I do wish, and that's probably a wish for the world, but I do wish
Sure.
that I could find a way to help students at my school be kinder to each other.
Yeah, that's a great one. It is a great one because it matters. And one of the things that I also learned fairly young is how to forgive. Because forgiveness isn't about the person that you're forgiving. It's about you releasing that and giving that away and saying because the bitterness and the anger and the frustration that you carry with you, that person may never not even remember you, and that's horrible to say. You've got
Right.
all this angst about somebody and they don't even remember you. It's not them that is harming you anymore. It's stuff that you're doing to yourself by holding on to it. So learning how to forgive, not for anybody else, but just for yourself, is such a great tool to just be able to say, you know what, I just don't need to carry that anymore. So
That's a big
yeah,
thing when I'm disciplining even the little ones is, they get into this, "I'm sorry, it's okay." And and I tell them, "You don't have to say it's okay. It's not okay that they
yeah,
punched you in the stomach or that they called you a name or said that they didn't like your hair. But you can say, "I forgive you for saying that," or "Thank you for apologizing." And then I think then maybe we don't carry it the same way. Like, you know what? It wasn't okay that he said that to me or he did that to me, but I'm not gonna let it define me or how I feel maybe
Right.
about that person moving forward.
Yeah. And forgiveness does not mean that you have to stay in that situation. If you're in an abusive situation, you do not you there is no forgiveness that you have to stay where you have to continue to physically endure abuse or any of those things, but
Did
being
you see my
able to.
face? The problem is when you're in a small school and you're in the same class and there's not another room to go to and there's not another playground, sometimes that is why people choose to say, I'm going to send my kid to a different school, not because everyone's awful, but just because for their child's emotional safety, they don't need to stay with that
Yeah.
situation anymore.
Absolutely, 1000%. And that's the beauty of education that and as a parent, you can choose. You
That's
can
right.
choose where you want your kids to go. It
That's right.
doesn't, you don't have it. And having that flexibility is I know there are some states and some places where you're kind of stuck, but there's lots of choices if you
There are
choose, if you
grace.
can, but ultimately, they're your kids. God gave them to you. They didn't give them to us, right? So,
Right.
so parents
That's
out there, you got to decide what's best for your
yeah.
children, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. And
all right.
encourage.
Well, Michelle,
Thank you
it's
for your
been
night.
fantastic. Tell people where they can find Happy Valley
Okay.
Elementary School.
Happy Valley is in Santa Cruz, California. If you've ever heard of the Mystery Spot, which if you come to the Bay Area, you probably heard of it. It is a unique little weird mystery place, and we're not too far from the Mystery Spot. We're about 5 minutes from the beach. You would have to look for us to find us. We're very rural. There's no stores or gas stations around, but we are a sweet school, and I'm so
Do you guys have
thankful
a
that you.
website? Do you
We
have a
do have a
website?
website.
Okay.
Mhm.
Give our listeners your website if you don't
It
mind.
is, www.hvesd, that stands for Happy Valley Elementary School District.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you so
The
much for
feelings.
being on Brighter Together, Michelle.
Thank you for
It
having
has
me.
been an absolute pleasure.
The feelings are mutual.
Great.